G'day and welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a video on what I've got sitting in front of me. A few details involved with that. I suppose first off would be this, the 28 Nosler. It's one I said we've had coming. Well, here it is together, and I'll go through and explain the build as to what it is. But another and probably as important detail is the bit in the middle here, the action. This is an action from K.S.Arms. My gunsmith over here, Brett Thompson, has just started to bring these in. He got some in, I think, or got one in, had a look at it, really likes the look of it type thing, and said, listen, do you want to try one of these? Do a build with one of these and see how it goes. A little bit of showcasing it, letting the world see, but also the fact that he really likes the action, and gave me the chance to do a build around one. And yes, I do like the action, a really nice action to be truthful. I'll go through more details and probably do a full review later on, but in the simple breakdown of it, it's a very nice, very well machined action out of 4340 steel. It's a black, this one's in a black nitrided finish. This is it's the LAR 3 lug. It's a long action. They run a 3 lug bolt with all very nicely machined. This is fully fluted. There's a changeable bolt handle, so you can put different bolt holes in these things. 60-degree rotation because of the 3 lug setup. They run a SAKO extractor. They run a side mount in the way of a bolt release. They are a Remington 700 platform, which I suppose I sort of led with. So or floor plate, I should say. So they go into most things. They're really designed to run best, I think, with a HS Precision bottom metal, but run with most of the good bottom metals, that sort of stuff. And this is just an LSS XL Gen 2 MDT chassis, which it bolted straight into. Fitted in beautifully, nice and flat, and unlike your factory Rem 700 actions where you'll get maybe a little bit of flex between the grinding of a factory Rem 700, they're not always dead perfect. This is machined perfectly and sat in here perfectly. Flat down, nothing going on, really looked like it is in exactly the right place. So far shot really, really well. I've actually they also take the Remington 700 trigger. I put in a dual trigger into this, so that's what I had in the cupboard. That's what went into this. I want to show it off now. I want to show what it looks like, that sort of stuff. Really nice finished, really nicely machined. Very, very smooth action. Probably the bit that he was most commenting on was how smooth this action was through here. Very smooth. That's actually just touching on the magazine, but that action's super smooth in how it felt. Super nice and precise in using it. Really, really nice piece of gear. Really, really felt good. And I really do like the finish of it. So I suppose the biggest comment, which probably attracted him to it, and I think will attract a lot of people to it, is it really has all the hallmarks and machined at the level, and the qualities that are involved are really in a sort of a tier 1 sort of action. But its cost is in probably the mid-range. It's the mid-range action. A tier 2 or in the medium level of custom actions is the costing side of things. You'd obviously have to check out your cost in your country, whether that's the US or Canada, which is where they're made. It's a Canadian-based action maker, or action and rifles, barrels they make as well, which we'll be testing one of those later on also. But wherever you are in the world as to what your cost is, but certainly for what I'm looking at, it is, like I said, they're in the mid-range of cost, and from what I'm looking at in the actual physical thing, in the top end of quality. So I really like it on that score. As beyond that, I'll get into the rest of the build, so we'll go through and explain what we've actually got. We've matched into it this is a 29-inch, inch and a quarter, so a full bull barrel in 1 twist. We did the 1 twist because being a 28 Nosler means it's a 7mm round, and I wanted to run the 195 grain Berger ELO projectile, OEL ejector, extreme outer limits, EOL projectile. So that's what I wanted to run in the thing. I've got one of my big threaded muzzle brakes on it, so it's got the big bore thread. So there's, as the video I did previously, the muzzle thread is nice and big. That's all timed in there, so that's all beautiful. This is a chassis we've used in a couple of different builds. It's got my front barrel guard, my bipod system, bag rider on it, and I've also done a couple little bits of spacers down the back here, which I'll explain further, but basically to make that as a really nice rigid unit for the adjustable buttstock, which has different spaces for different size using, but really just me making it as good as I can make things. And sitting on top here, my normal air attack, am holding this is the 7x35 attacker scope. Now to start off with, at the moment it's got what I think they factory come with is the 20 MOA rail, and I'm about to have a chat and see if they'll do custom rails and if I can go further, or if I'm making one, but I want to get my 60 MOA rail on it for the way I do things. But equally, as in my air attack setup, this means that I have jack that up 40 to the 40 MOA, which means I have the scope canted at 60 MOA, which means I have 0 at 100 0 at 100 yards, and that is going to be able to adjust up in this one 124 minutes of elevation. So awesome, went really well, shot really nicely, and I suppose I'll get into how the actual rifle shot. The one bit, well, let's go back to actually the 28 Nosler. Why I picked the 28 Nosler. It's a little bit on the path of going through with the ELR and what is the best cartridge for ELR. Really coming down to all the normal things of what your actual distance are, what your conditions are, and that sort of stuff. But I'm actually looking at something that's going to be good for 3,000 and that neck of the woods, whether that's 2 miles at 3,500 yards or it's just 3,000 yards, and all the bits and pieces that I've sort of been through, but there'll be an overview later on when I've done more of it. So doing a lot with the 30s, really do like the 30 cal, but the 7mm is also something that's always stood out to me. My 7mm Rem mag has always performed so well, and really going to whether that was the 7mm practical, which is the 7mm or a 300 Win mag decked down to a 7mm cartridge. So whether it was that side of things or the other one that came up when we did the 300 PRC, it really obviously, from my testing, really preferred a slightly lighter bullet. So would it prefer the 7mm in there? Would a 7mm / 300 PRC be the one that would be really ideal to build? And then when I did that research and going through it, there is more powerful. There's the 7mm Allen, there's the 7mm 300 338 Lapua. There's lots and lots of going harder and harder. But as I've always found that a point, the extra power, you're on an exponential curve of losses. So once you go too far, you don't just get more speed, you start to get more negatives as well. So what's that sweet spot? Really the 7mm practical, really well spoken about. And then I looked at it further with that PRC and went, wait a minute, the 7mm Nosler is sort of right smack in the middle there. It sort of is those cartridges in its own way. So that's what I chose to go with. The other reason I went with it is I haven't shot any Noslers and really felt that, okay, it's if I'm going to do this in not doing just every cartridge with $1 million budget, which I don't have, then maybe that's a nice place to feed that in. It's so close to those other ones, it's a Nosler as well, so let's do that. So that's the path we've been on in that process. And when the option to use this action came up and to be able to showcase it, I thought, okay, that ties in nicely with that. Let's do that. So that's what we did. And in saying that, probably the one thing that I wasn't happy with in my setup as yet, and it's fixable, but the one bit I wasn't happy was when I did up the brass and I went through my normal process. So I deburred the flash holes, I sized, I checked, I weighed, I did all those bits and pieces. The one bit I got to which I wasn't happy with was the actual neck thickness was a little bit thick. So my neck thickness was up to 18.5 thou. I prefer to be around the 16 to 14 neck of the woods, but that's not too much of a deal. That's only 2.5 thou we're talking about. The big deal that I wasn't happy with was in some cases had 18 on one side and 14.5 on the other side, or 14 was the biggest. I saw a difference of 4 thou from one side of the neck to the other side of the neck on the Nosler brass. Now that's fairly fixable. I just didn't have a neck turner for 7mm. I've got it for other sizes. I don't have the setup for the mandrels and bits and pieces for 7mm. So I used it as it was. And because of that, I would feel that's the reason anyway. I saw a little bit bigger ES than I normally would expect, so my speeds varied. I was talking mid 2900s to 3000 feet per second. So and I should say, because I knew that, I didn't go to the top end of my pressure. I kept it down a little bit, trying to be a little bit more consistent until I sort that out. And I'd expect to end up around, with ADI powder at least, around the 3,100 feet per second is where I expect to land with this. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but around the 3,100 is where I expect to be. And at the moment I was around the 3,000 is where it ended up at the end of this shoot. But it was took a little bit more to settle in. So I'll go to the shoot and how it went. 600 yards, we're on there very simply, shot away very well. Yeah, well, this is what it went like.
Okay. Right. All right, good to go, mate.
Okay.
Hit, beautiful. Just low of centre.
That's
awesome.
A nice whack, isn't it?
Nice, big noise. Hit, nice. Top, just off centre. Just left of centre.
Let's just that one down. It's a little bit bigger group
Okay.
than I'd want to see, but let's just see how it goes the next couple.
Yep. First shots.
Yep, exactly. Very first.
Nice. Well, that little lock looks all right.
Yep. Oh, everything's functioning really nicely.
Yep. Awesome.
He ended up in around about the 4-inch group. So, listen, not as good as I want to end up, but still at 600 yards, or 620, 614 yards, I think it is. That's still okay. Went out to the long target, and you can see a little bit of what really came into the speed side of things. Well, I'll show you this one and see how this goes.
Try this, see how it goes. So I've got 36, and this goes straight on.
Okay. Hit. There we go. So,
Okay, kind of a bit low.
yep. 6
I'll just
o'clock.
do the same thing.
Hit the frame. Everything's short.
No, I must hit the handle.
Must hit the handle. Yep. Okay. That was a handle noise, wasn't it? Or there was a target noise.
Yeah, yep.
There we go. Middle top. Got it.
Okay, now let's just settle down on speeds and that sort of stuff, but that's good.
The target's not swinging a lot. It's just sort of
No,
wriggling.
it's a new heavy target, isn't it?
Yeah. On there.
Now that's not bad.
Nice and
Let's see if we can
central.
get what we can get out of a 3-shot group at 1,350 yards.
Oh, handle. Yep.
Well, that's only just higher than that little group, isn't
Yeah.
it? Okay, well, one more.
Radio.
I'm just holding the same spot on those, so
Okay. There we go. Just on the top.
well, that's not bad. That'll
No.
do. For those last, what, 5 shots look like they're in a 6-inch group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's shooting pretty nice.
Yes. Awesome.
a little bit, to be honest, of just settling in. Still ended up really good. 6-inch group out at 1,346 yards, so still really good. I didn't go too much further. I will actually pull these bullets. Well, I've got a couple of different angles coming. I'm going to go with a 7mm neck turner so I can neck turn this stuff, but I've also gone to some Peterson brass, which hopefully is coming here, set it up like that. Then I expect it'll all dial back in. Everything in how the rifle shot, awesome, really happy with it, working really nicely. I had to put a little bit more weight down the back of this rifle just for my feel of it, because I've got the big heavy up the front and it's sort of normal weight down the back. So not that it really needs more weight, but I prefer a little more balance, so I'll put a tiny bit more weight down the back of it. But the rest of it is, listen, awesome. The action, listen, there is that extra little bit in smoothness. And as for whether that translates into accuracy, don't really know. I really go with what I like to see. I like the feel of the machining side of things. I certainly like the technology, the 60-degree bolt lift, the look of all the material, the way it's finished. It's a black nitrate or nitrited finish on these things. Very nice. Like I said, all the things of the extreme top level of something probably worth twice, or not worth, costs twice the money of these things, but still at a good price. It comes into a very nice quality, and with the Remington 700 footprint, the straightness of it, how it bolted down, how neat it was, how well it fit, awesome. So that's about a list of bits and pieces with this one. I'm really looking forward to getting this working. I'd have to say at a 6-inch group out at 1,350 yards, I'm being fussy, I know, but how this is, how it felt to shoot, all that sort of stuff. The only thing I saw was speeds are a bit all over the place. But as said, well, I suppose, and there's a bit on that people ask all the time, how do I get the speed so consistent and that sort of stuff? And I don't do load development beyond finder pressure. The main thing I do, to be truthful, and I unify the flash holes, and I put the little chamfer on the inside, and I make sure that everything in the way of all the bits and pieces is very even in the way of the brass. But the biggest thing, to be truthful, is my fingertips. What I mean by that is the feel I've got of that bullet going into that neck is always been the most important thing to me. So when I get that, they group better. Now that I run more for you guys than for me, but I run the lab radar chronograph, so I'm speed reading, I really get to see speeds that are better than, well, not better, the speeds that are very good. So ESs, extreme spreads, and standard deviations that are very good, extraordinarily good generally. And why is that? So the only thing I can say to actually qualify that is I don't load development to try and find that. I do tend to be running up there in the way of a full case. So just on compressed is roughly where I'm at. What I'm really doing is I don't care about the compressed side of things. I do care about my pressure. I don't want to see K stamping, I don't want to see squared off primers, I don't want to have tight bolt lifts, I don't want anything to be negative, but I do want to be up there. I do want to make that bullet perform as well as it can. I also do a lot of matching powder to the barrel. This is something I tested here, whether I was using the 2218 or the 2225, which is whether it's the Retumbo or the 50 BMG powders. And because I've got the extra length small bore, I really feel that the 2218 or the 50 BMG is going to be my best powder, where I can run a bit more pressure, and it has just longer time to burn. It is a length versus diameter thing, is the time of what that powder's got to burn and how much it's trying to do inside those things. Certainly if it was a 26 or a 27-inch barrel, I know the Retumbo would win, but in my 29-inch barrel, it's looking like the 2218 or the BMG powder will win. But getting back to what I'm talking about, that is the bit that I think where the extra thing comes from. Lining all that up so it's a very complete, solid burn with very neat, even tension, with sorted out brass so the burn's happening at the same rate, the ignition's happening at the same rate, is one of the clues. The other detail, what I'm always doing, which may seem a little counterintuitive, but I'm almost always only using a large rifle primer. I'm not using a Magnum primer. I use a gold medal large rifle primer because I want as smoother ignition as I can get. So it's a smooth, then we get a consistent strong but very consistent flame front, so a very consistent consumption of that powder to try and give extremes the best speeds or the most consistent speeds, and it seems to work. In saying all that, that is not done with science, what I just explained there. That's not done by me testing every other different way of doing it. This is what's come to be by the nature of being a mechanic and by using my hands, and that feel of the bullet going in is really important. The logic of making everything neat for the burn is very important. The logic of having the case burn or the case fill very consistent in the way of not just a mount, but it's full up. There's no air gaps or no places for powder to sit in places. That's obviously very important. And when it comes to getting the best speed versus the pressure and that sort of stuff, that's more a performance-based thing, but it also makes sense of why those ESs are so low. So anyway, this one on that level was a bit bigger. There was a 50 spread, which I'm normally expecting somewhere around the 12s or 15s or even 20 over the first 50 rounds sort of stuff. And it was a little bit bigger than that. The necks is totally what I put it down to. And maybe that's in other parts in the brass as well. One of the clues, if the neck's inconsistent, then almost certainly the rest of the chamber is, the rest of the brass is a little bit inconsistent as well. I don't know that, and otherwise the Nosler brass seemed to be really good. It's really nice looking brass. So, don't know. We'll try with the Peterson, we'll try with the neck turning and see what we end up with. But that's where I stand at this moment on the 28 Nosler. So I'll finish off with the action. Really liked it. Nice action. There is some choices. It is K.S.Arms Limited is the business. I'll put the name down there. I don't put links on so I don't get in trouble with anything on the YouTube side of things. And I really like them. I think good value for money and worthwhile checking out if you're thinking about an action. But I'll do more of a review on the thing later on. Right now I want to use it a little bit. That's just my preliminary thoughts on it. I like it and I'm looking forward to using it. Anyway guys, thanks for checking in on us. Catch you next time.